Being on the program.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Jeff, you won the Republican endorsement at the convention a couple of weeks ago, and you've worked hard for quite a while to build up support among the party's activists. How important do you think that endorsement is going to be as we move now into the primary season?
Oh, I think it'll be crucial, and I wouldn't have moved forward without the endorsement. I know some people disagree with this, but I think the endorsement has served us well in the Republican Party, and I think it's crucial to win in November, to have a very united and energized base within the Republican Party. I think it's going to be very difficult to win without that. So I'm thrilled to have it. I think I've been to a lot of conventions, including 2002 when I stayed up all night to help Tim Pawlenty get endorsed. And I left this convention feeling better about where the party is from a unity standpoint than I've felt in a long time.
What sort of campaign do you intend to run between now and August? Is it going to be a primary-style campaign really focused on Republican primary voters, or do you expect to be more in a general election mode?
Yeah, I would say more in a general election mode, but it'll be a combination. Obviously, I got to win the primary, which is a hill to climb, and so we're going to focus where we go on where we think we'd find Republican primary voters, but the message is not going to change between pre-endorsement or pre-primary or the general. The message has been the same and will stay the same throughout.
You were the Republican nominee for governor 4 years ago, and you didn't do that badly against a sitting governor. I think you lost by about 5.5 points. Yep. Does that give you some confidence going into this year's race with an open seat?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, we haven't had a sitting governor who's a second term in like 50 or 60 years in Minnesota. It just seldom happens, and I went from about 15 or 16 points down to 5 points down. It wasn't enough, but as I'm traveling around the state, I've been in this race for over a year and talked to literally thousands and thousands of Minnesotans. There is such an interest in change right now that I did not see 4 years ago. A lot of people were saying, hey, we don't want to change horses in midstream, but people want something different. And it's people from across the political spectrum. This is not a real partisan thing. They are just tired of the way government seems to be ignoring people, where our state agencies seem to believe that their job is to tell everybody else how to live their lives as opposed to serve the people who pay their salaries. And that gives me great hope that the message I'm sharing can prevail both in August and in November.
Now, there was a news story just a day or two ago, Commissioner, that indicated that Governor Tim Pawlenty is well ahead in the fundraising race so far. How important do you think that is?
You know, money is important in elections without question, but anybody who believes that it is the end-all, be-all has not been paying attention for the past decade or so. It's certainly not the past handful of years. And I will be fine, but my big money is going to come in after the primary, just as it did 4 years ago. We raised a couple of $1 million in a few weeks after the primary. Tim's money's coming in early. Mine's going to come in late. So we'll be fine there. But I think more importantly, if anybody is going to rely upon amassing a war chest in a primary as opposed to getting out there and engaging voters and having a grassroots army all over the state, I think it's a big mistake. And I think that is a big difference in how Tim and I are running our races.
I may be in the minority here, I don't know, but and obviously you need some resources. You can't win without getting your message out. But it seems to me that especially in the last couple of election cycles, being able to pay for a whole lot of TV advertising isn't necessarily the key to victory.
Right. No, it isn't. And, we have spending limits in this state. And actually, if you look at where I'm at compared to Tim Walz, he has more cash on hand. He doesn't have a ton more cash on hand. I'm actually going to have an advantage over him because he's spent so much to raise the money he has. I'm going to be able to spend more in the general. And I agree with you. Having enough money to get a message out there is crucial for the primary and well for the general. But again, it's kind of the Jeb Bush strategy from 2016. Let's just amass the biggest war chest and rely on name recognition and don't really engage voters. It just doesn't work very well anymore.
As you know, Commissioner, Minnesota has one of the higher tax burdens of any state. Different studies measure it a little bit differently. Maybe we're sixth, maybe we're eighth, but we're definitely one of the highest overall tax burdens. If you get elected governor, are you going to try to reduce that tax burden? And if so, how?
Oh, my gosh, absolutely. And frankly, that is the difficulty, is trying to choose where you start cutting taxes because I think we're in the top 8 in almost every single major tax category. There's a couple where we're in the teens. My greatest focus, my top focus will be on the income tax, particularly the lower levels of the income tax. I think we need to cut all of them. But when you look at our lowest income tax rate, our lowest rate is actually higher than the highest rate in 23 other states, which is absolutely insane. So we're not just taxing to death CEOs in Minnesota. We're taxing to death school teachers and mechanics and bartenders and daycare workers. And that has to be the first thing we fix. And it will be, I get asked all the time, what's the first thing you'll do as governor? And I used to say, I'll fire the Met Council. But that's actually now the second thing I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to do as governor is try to fix the mess that Mark Dayton made by vetoing a bill that at least helped a little bit with our tax burden.
Well, and also conformed our tax system to the changes in the federal law. It's going to be a nightmare for Minnesota taxpayers come April.
Absolutely. And that is, again, that goes back to the frustration that I'm hearing all over this state where government doesn't seem to care how their actions are affecting real people. And this veto that Dayton threw out there a couple weeks ago, he didn't really even have a reason for it other than politics. And what it's going to do is it's going to make life absolutely miserable for millions of people in this state because it's going to be impossible to get your taxes done. And a lot of people are actually going to see tax increases when the federal government actually cut taxes. It's crazy.
It's unfortunate. One of the topics we talked about earlier in the program, Commissioner Johnson, was traffic congestion in the Twin Cities. As governor, is that something that you can impact? And if so, what do you propose to do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, the first thing I'm going to do with respect to that is instruct my Department of Transportation that they need to focus on congestion. Right now, they have essentially decided, I think they announced this a couple of years ago, that congestion is not a priority for them anymore. What's the priority is offering up different avenues for people to travel other than cars when most people rely upon cars to get where they want to go. And I happen to believe that we should be serving taxpayers and helping them do what they need to do to make their lives work rather than trying to change their behavior. And so we'll start with actually focusing on congestion relief, and that means you prioritize your spending. Rather than spending $2 billion plus on a light rail line that is not going to relieve congestion in any meaningful way, and then tens of millions a year to subsidize the thing, let's take that money or some of that money and put it into roads that people rely upon to get to where they want to go. It's really a matter of prioritizing.
Where do you stand on mining in Minnesota? Some of these projects up north seem to be coming to a head. What's your position?
We're sitting on a literal gold mine. Oh, gold mine's not the right word because it's not gold, but we have minerals up there that no one else in the world has, or at least almost no one else in the world has. Certainly no one else in the United States has. And we are playing political games with something that could provide a great service to people and also create great private sector jobs in an area of the state where they are desperate for good jobs. And so the fact that we are slow walking this and that we are letting regulations, we're actually not allowing businesses to go through the normal regulatory process. We have a tough regulatory process to protect our environment, and I'm okay with that. But what I'm seeing right now is government playing games with that regulatory process so that as businesses should be working through that to create jobs, we're standing in the way. I'm going to be an advocate for this as governor because I truly believe that we can do this, that the private sector can create great jobs up there in a way that protects the environment.
We're talking with Commissioner Jeff Johnson, the third of the candidates for governor that we've talked with tonight. Commissioner, I want to just give you the last word and ask you to take a minute or so to tell our listeners why you think you should be our next governor.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And just to fill everybody in, I'm the endorsed Republican candidate. I'm in a primary with Tim Pawlenty, and then whichever of us wins that will go on to the general. And, my message and my, I think, distinction, one of my distinctions with Tim is that I don't believe this is a time for business as usual. I don't believe this is a time for more of the same or tinkering on the edges. We need fundamental generational change in government. We need to change the very culture in St. Paul from that of telling everybody how to live their lives or or spend their money or run their businesses to actually serving the people who pay their salaries. And I think I'm the only one in this race from either party who's going to bring that fundamental change to government.
Commissioner Jeff Johnson, thank you very much for being with us. We are going to go to a break now, and when we return, we'll take your calls. In the metro area, that's 651-989-9226. In Greater Minnesota, toll-free, 866-989-9226. We'll be right back after these messages.